Well, good morning and welcome to the segment which is the agenda, where we talk matters that are very key to national importance. And this month being the budget month, we speak matters budget. Now, the budget will be launched, the national budget will be launched next week. And today we are having still conversations regarding the same. And when we talk about the budget, the biggest question is usually, where is the money going to come from? Especially now that our budget went overboard when it was presented. The numbers have gone higher, and Ugandans are wondering, where is this money going to come from? Because the last time we checked, you are telling us that development partners are dropping out and leaving the avenues and the ventures that they have been supporting. And of course, when it comes to grants, the countries that have been giving us grants also have their own issues, supporting wars that are ongoing, like in Gaza and of course in Ukraine. So where does that leave Uganda and our bloated budget? We have had proposals to reduce certain aspects of government, like the parliament, like the cabinet, but still that feels like a drop in the ocean when it comes to the monies that we need as a country. And URA has been embroiled in fights with traders regarding the FRS system, but of course taxes as well, as traders are saying the taxes are too high and the spend does not make sense to us, the taxpayers. Of course, even us in the corporate sector, we're like, we are paying taxes for every Ugandan. Still, taxes must be paid for the country to get from one level to another. We want to be middle income. And for us to get there, something has got to give. Well, I'm not having this conversation alone. I have a guest in studio with me, and he will be launching into that and telling us more about the domestic revenue aspirations. How are we getting this money? Where is this money going to come from? My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and I'm having this conversation with Mr. David Walakira from the Center for Budget and Tax Policy. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm better today morning.
You're better?
Yes.
I like that, because you're going to, I don't know, break our hearts or give us hope.
Hearts are not meant to be broken, they're meant to be strengthened. I'm going to strengthen our hearts.
How exactly are you going to strengthen our hearts with a budget and taxes? Because one thing I've realized is that Ugandans are on the fence when it comes to taxes. And before we even talk about the budget and whatnot, why are Ugandans on the fence when it comes to paying taxes?
One other thing, besides death, that we're sure about is paying taxes. And for me, that is one of the realities that gives me peace. That should give everyone peace. For any government to have autonomy and responsibility over its people, paying taxes stops being a subjective issue. It becomes a matter of fact. So for me, that becomes a really very nice point to start off, because every time we talk about taxes, I don't fringe. I would make sure that I possibly pay the fair share is the highlight. The keyword is fair share of the tax that I'm supposed to pay. But then, more importantly, how is the money mobilized? How is the money being put together? How inclusive is that process? How many of us that are supposed to pay are paying? Those are some of the pain points that will possibly come through. Then there are often aspects of how is this money being collected, and all that then comes into the whole bigger picture. For me, the question of paying tax is one of those that is passionate. And I think 2024-2025 has given us a new challenge. We have aspirations of over 31 trillion shillings to collect. This aspiration jumped up from 29 trillion, 29.9 in the draft budget that we got. So when the budget jumped to 72, the aspirations for the money we need jumped up to about 31 trillion shillings. So for me, that becomes an interesting point of discussion. Okay. Where is 31 trillion shillings going to come from?
All right, and I do understand that the draft budget started at 52 trillion, then we went to 58, and now 72. What advised these changes? Why are we at 72?
Some of these changes are mostly non-cash resource. There are categories of allocations that we have in our budget that are called memo items. They are not meant to interface with us, the citizen, in terms of cash that is coming in through government expenditure. These are your interest payments. These are your debt recognitions of the bonds and bills that we cannot pay and we're rolling over. These are our external debt obligations. These are obligations to Bank of Uganda. So this lump sum of monies does not interface in service delivery. It does interface in a lagged manner, if I may use that, to mean we spent and now we are paying back.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where that discussion comes in. But also the 72 came about when we doubled how much money we plan on borrowing from the domestic market. So that means that if you are planning on borrowing from a bank, think about it again, because you're going to be competing with government. In the monetary policy framework that we have, the Bank of Uganda has said that the average weighted interest rate has come down to about 17%. But that is just nice words to say that the 17% is for only the trustworthy lenders. Now, borrowers. Now, who is trustworthy? It's in the risk profiling, really.
Really.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
as you
so for the majority of the Ugandan, with the competing priority now, we have to pick close to 8 trillion shillings from the domestic market. That means that if I was Stanbic, if I were your DFCU bank, your Standard Chartered, I would not give David Warakira money. Yes, he has a job. Yeah, he gets a salary, but he might get fired. And I'll get stuck with non-performing loan. I will go to the government of the Republic of Uganda, who I know needs money, and even if governments change, Uganda won't go away.
Uganda, it will be high risk, but Uganda is not going anywhere. So
then that means that they will prioritize and choose to pick money from, to give their money to the Republic of Uganda for spending. So for me, those are some of the things that pushed our budget towards the 72 mark. In terms of the amount of money that we have to spend, it hasn't changed much. We still have about 37 trillion shillings. So for my fellow Ugandans out there, don't let 72 excite you that much.
So when the government starts borrowing locally, and Ugandans are now competing with the government to get these loans from the banks, what situation do you envision in the future? Isn't already the cost of living is very high for a normal Ugandan, and now you can't run your business because the facility that you need, the government is a better client for the bank. What situation are we going to see in the future?
So we have a few scenarios playing out. The question of revenue, one of the ways in which we finance our deficit is borrowing, when you have more money to spend than actual money coming in. That's why for me, I really thought it important for us to have a bit of a reflection of where is the 31 trillion shillings going to come from. And we've seen several bills come through, government has presented excise duty bills, stamp duty bills, Income Act bills, all these having a mixture of policy direction to improve administration and to digitize, because those are some of the strategies, to try and encourage compliance. But at the end of the day, you get to realize that if we do not collect this money effectively, and effectively means within an acceptable cost. Part of what drove up the 72 trillion shillings is that government has accepted to crank up the human resource for URA by increasing the wage bill by 64 billion shillings.
Why is that?
So for me right now, I've always understood of that gap in terms of human resources that URA needs to do the tax education, to do the tax audits, because these are things that we know a tax authority body should be doing. And I'm really excited for that development because I'm looking for a reason that Choi will possibly give the country at the end of 2025 without having collected 31 trillion shillings. If the issue was you don't have critical staff, they've thrown 64 billion shillings at you.
If the issue was tax education? And
in total, they've thrown over 160 billion shillings to them. Now, the 64 is just for the human resources.
Yes.
But they've been given money for equipping and digitization. So for me, that is part of what I think is possibly exciting. And when digitization as a strategy of collecting money has come through strong, the famous IFRIS is with us right now. Yes. The traders thought they would politic their way out of it. They've spoken to even the president.
Yes.
And I'm glad this is one of the few times when you see the president holding his foot down, because if you're a leader of a country that cannot collect enough tax, then what are you leading? Then you're going to be a leader of, actually you're going to be a chief borrower.
But then there is the belief that you cannot tax the country into development.
Well, you actually have to tax your way into development. If you don't, then what's going to be your route to development? You're going to borrow your way into development?
Probably.
Because one of the critical role, because the growth question, development as we know it, has facets in it. There has to be investment, there has to be consumption, there has to be government expenditure and a bit of interaction with the exports and imports. Now, we often focus on the government expenditure and we forget the other variables in this discussion of development and growth. For me, critical is consumption, and that's why it is important that when we are taxing, we tax fairly, and the balance between collecting money and growth is critical, because if for example, I'm dealing with a VAT rate of 18%, even when we use it to collect money, and VAT gives us quite a lot of money, my neighbor in Kenya is spending at 16% VAT. So if we have the same amount of money, they can consume more goods. Now that has a spillover effect in manufacturing, then the manufacturer can produce more, okay, and the prices will be set a bit low, and then hence goes the cycle. Then their tax body can tax the manufacturer more. So for me, that is the balance that we have to strike very well.
Okay.
And you see, you cannot have a critical mass labeled informal, and they are holding close to about 48% of this economy.
That's true.
They are not tax compliant. Every time you talk about tax, they want to run to the president. I was excited. I was excited.
Wanted to see how that conversation
I was excited that they were put in their place. And for me, not to say that there are no issues around the administration there, really. But the point is, let's not allow to politic our way out of paying tax. A critical bit that can push, maybe, I think for me, I'll be excited if the president sets another precedent over this, is having border riders pay income tax.
But how are you going to do that?
Thank you very much. Now you see, how do border riders get licenses? There are nexuses, and I think for me, interagency cooperation becomes critical here. The agencies that we know are in charge of issuing licenses, it's as simple as you come to pick a license, just come along with your tax certificate. It is your duty to comply. We make it seem like it's the role of URA to run after us to pay tax. No. A responsible citizen, it is your duty to pay your taxes. Tax enforcement is not about running after you. You get.
It's
but
for you to know that
it's for you to comply, and you see, and part of administration with interagency cooperation, URA's job is made a lot easier. And why URA is finding a hard time administering the mode of work with IFRIS is that KCC has possibly failed to organize the marketplace downtown. Traders have genuine concerns. You're making me pay tax here, but there's a guy in front of me in the corridor who has no address, who is not paying the rent, who is
selling the same merchandise.
So for me, if you force me to VAT my goods, I'm going to get pushed out. Now that is for KCA to fix that marketplace. Okay, not for a disorganized marketplace would make tax administration very, very, very expensive. I really think so. Digitization alone will not work if the marketplace is not organized by related agencies. So for me, the cooperation would really be good, and we've seen this coming through quite critically. Why you have only 1,000%, the topmost taxpayers paying 75% of the total tax that we collect, is disturbing.
Yes. It is, and
it is really quite disturbing.
In most cases, when we see the budget and we see how much tax is supposed to be collected domestically, most people in Uganda are like, oh, but who is paying this money? We are just a few people in employment that are paying taxes, and we are paying for pretty much the rest of the country. Or even the traders, they're like, I pay this, I pay this. Probably you are in it to do more when it comes to tax education. Yet they're doing it already, but like you said, downtown and in the marketplace, there is still a lot that needs to be done. And if they cooperate with KCCA, maybe we could see something better. But I like what you did mention about border borders. Why, in your opinion, why is your focus? Why were they the first one to like churn off your lips?
When in my earlier days, I actually owned 2 border borders. Yes. Now, I'll then later talk about cattle. The speaker said she has cattle and no one is taxing them. And
I wanted to go there next.
But for me, on average, and this is way back, possibly 2010-ish, then my guys would manage to, each bike would give me about 60,000 shillings a day. Me. Now, obviously, I know those guys were making a bit, a notch more. Otherwise, why would they allow?
They would give you 60,000.
Yes.
Because what I know is that in most cases, they only revert about 10,000 a day. I kid you not. 10,000 okay. Daily.
I'm talking about the genuine ones.
Okay.
Okay, you see, when you're discussing, there is the norm one, there is the outliers. So
okay.
the outliers are there. But
we focus on the normal
and I'm
ones.
possibly sharing a bit of my personal experience with this particular trade.
Okay.
And so that means in 10 days, 70,000, 20 days, 140,000, you get.
Yes.
So meaning, those guys could be able to gross in quite some good money that is above the minimum threshold for pay as you earn. You know, our income tax laws are very progressive. You know, for people that earn, is it less than 235,000 shillings, they're not charged income tax.
Yes.
Okay, that's how progressive it is. Now, if someone owns a border and it is theirs, okay, they are possibly going to earn 400, 600,000 shillings a month. Yeah. And obviously, they will pay their third-party license and all the relevant. But on what we call direct income, they're going to go scot-free.
They're going to go scot-free, and that is an industry that is untouched.
And I really don't want to think it's untouched. I think it's highly politicized, which is just like all tax areas. But this particular one, people seemed to confuse fees with the taxes and that, you know. Because, I mean, if you pay money, if in your grouping at a given stage where you stop to collect people, you choose to pay cleaning fee. How is that a tax that the government will pay? That is a fee. And the fee, by quick understanding, gives you direct benefit. Taxes by design are hard to put direct benefit to. It's more of long-term and lagged because the money comes into a pool, the processes of planning and budgeting go on. Ultimately, our parliament sits down and they decide where the money goes, and then we get back the service. So there is a bit of a lag. So
probably that's the education that is wanting.
I think for me, this is not you cannot educate someone into paying tax.
You can't?
I will tell you this.
How do you then get
possibly,
mindset
if
change?
It were up to you to remit your pay as you earn every month, we would be looking for you. No amount of education. It is because it's administered, not by, it is withheld by your employer by law. Many of us. So the taxation matters for me. There is the education bit, but there is administration. Administration has to be thorough and frugal.
Yeah, thorough and frugal. And now that takes us to cattle. A few weeks ago, I did read a tweet by Ron Kawamara, and he was saying that one of the sectors that are not taxed, yet they gross largely, is the business that involves cattle. And he said that many people have ranches, big ones. Now, the tax is put on the product that comes out, let's say milk. But when the people that are rearing the cattle are going scot-free. When
they sell the actual cow.
When they, yes.
Or bull for that matter.
Exactly. So what are your thoughts on that?
This is for me a close to similar example for the informality that we allow to precipitate in front of our eyes. And because we have no structured way of tracking personal income, that is where the challenge comes in. If the structure, if there's structured guidance on how do you, yes, it is your asset, but right now if you want to sell your land, there is a 1.5 charge that is when you're trying to transfer the money, you know. So certain areas have realized that we can collect money, others have refused.
Okay.
You know, so for me, it really becomes an administration issue. It really becomes an issue of beginning to have these candid discussions. You're going to get a lot of resistance.
All right. So now I would like for us to look at the sectors that are being targeted for the generation of domestic revenue. Which are these sectors that are being looked at as where part of the 31 will come from?
The bills for 2024-2025 that have been discussed in Parliament have mostly targeted industry. Industry has your manufacturing and a bit of your construction. That's why we've seen the excise duty on cement coming through.
Yes.
That's why you've seen other related rates around. We also have services that are capturing fuel that has also come through that many people are not excited about, well, including myself, but I mean, it is what it is. You see, I say these things, but it's really hard to allow when the tax comes. But so the targets really, in this case, and for me, is about a mixture of administration and a mixture of adjustment of the tax rates. And most of the tax rates that have been adjusted, for example, in industry, we have seen, I have also seen this, an encouragement of the electric cars. So what is coming through is that when you have an assembling plant of electric cars or gadgets that are going to be working on electric cars, the batteries and stuff, you have an exemption if you're going to be employing 70% of your employees as local, but also 70% of your wage bill going to locals. And I think for me, these are some of the incentives that do both a mixture of giving us jobs, but also following through to ensure that you don't have 1,000 Ugandans who are taking 2% of your payroll. No. And
then we have profit repatriation.
So I think this is what this is trying to do. That was a very good move that did come through. So we see a mixture of both of that, a bit of touching of tax rates when it comes to fuel and a bit of others, but also on the other side, a guidance of really just policy guidance on how do we ensure that the tax is actually fair. That the tax expenditure, because see, when government gives you a holiday, we incur a cost as a country, but that tax expenditure has a requisite positive impact on the citizens. Yeah.
Well, we've been talking matters budget, and of course, here the main focus has been on the domestic revenue aspirations. Where is the excess money that is going to facilitate the budget going to come from? Because the budget that was presented is now at 72 trillion. And many Ugandans, including you and I, have been wondering, where is this money going to come from? So this is the conversation we've been having with Mr. David Walakira from the Center for Budget and Tax Policy. We'll take a sip of water and we'll be right back.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. bucks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.